It's been years of global discussions on the impact of climate change, but for many countries, the message has yet to settle, and I can say that even for Ghana. Well, in parts of Europe and Germany, to be specific, climate change is a big political issue. In fact, it is a determinant of election winners. Angela Merkel's coalition government is pushing concrete measures to be announced on Friday aimed at curbing emissions, but there is a lot of skepticism. Let's talk a bit more about this. Malte Rover Kalman is correspondent with our partners TW. He joins me live from Berlin. Malte, tell us a bit more about these plans being put together by government to deal with climate change.
It's kind of hard still to tell you exactly what will come out on Friday because it's still on the wraps. There's still a lot of negotiations going on. But what we do know is that the government has said that they're taking this seriously and they will be spending big and they will announce big changes. And they do really need to, because they're not on track for their own climate targets they set for themselves. They will miss them for next year. So if they want to, get back on track for 2030, things need to change. One of the major elements that they most likely will announce on Friday is that they will put a price tag on companies' their CO2 emissions that might either take the form of an additional tax, or they might introduce a trading scheme for CO2 emissions. So effectively, though, in both instances, companies will pay for CO2 emissions, and the hope, of course, is that they will, move away from blowing CO2 into the air and go greener. Another big issue that will be announced, or that where we will see major changes, is the area of traffic, the one area of CO2 emissions where we haven't seen a decline since 1990 in the amount of CO2 that's being produced. So the government will most certainly also address that in their announcements on Friday.
So it looks like government wants to spend big, but government also is looking at tax disincentives. But there has been a number of protests as far as climate change is concerned. Would you tell us whether or not people think government's plan will go far at all?
Absolutely. The Fridays for Future movement has announced a big demonstration for Friday, where it's also been supported by unions and other civil rights groups. So that will be a nationwide protest calling to attention the urgency of this climate action plan that the government will be announcing. The protesters have already said that what they're expecting the government to announce will not go far enough in their view. They are saying it should go a lot further, a lot quicker, and are calling for more action on the government. These are the protesters, of course, that's why they're going onto the street. But also in wider Germany, the climate action, climate change has taken center stage. More than 60% now view it as a major challenge. And obviously this is putting on the pressure onto the government to react and to come out with plans that are feasible and that will actually make a difference.
Well, 60% feel that climate change is a big issue. Sounds like a good deal, given the efforts that really need to go into dealing with it. But people are pretty much used to the usual. So tell us how Germany is faring in switching more towards electric mobility.
The government also here is failing to reach its initial targets that it set for 2020. It wanted to have 1 million electric cars on the road by next year, and so far there are only about 250,000. So the government has admitted we're not going to reach that target. But what they will announce on Friday will probably be another major push towards reaching that target, very soon. And they might get inspiration from a state like Norway, where already every second car on the road is electrically powered. What Norway has done is, first of all, build charging stations all over the country, so that it's actually feasible for someone with an electric car to travel, and also give financial incentives to motorists so that they change from fuel-powered cars to electrically powered cars. Germany is already doing that, but on a much lower scale. So what people are expecting on Friday is a big push for more electric mobility with announcements in these two areas.
Well, that could be possible in a place where electricity doesn't perhaps cost as much and isn't much of a big issue. But here in Ghana, electricity, dealing with power, energy production, etc., is a real big issue that we haven't yet figured out completely. But let's wrap this conversation up with what other measures there are to reduce traffic emissions.
So basically the government could do everything that makes driving cars and flying planes less attractive and all the other alternatives more attractive. If you look at the train system, for example, it's massively underfunded at the moment. 3 billion euros are lacking this year alone. That means that trains are delayed, trains get cancelled, and also that the ticket prices are really quite expensive. So people are actually deterred from taking the train and much rather drive to where they need to get, or even take the plane within Germany, which is not really a big country. So funding the public train system, that might be one way the government is trying to reduce traffic emissions. Also making flying more expensive, particularly flights within Germany. That is something that they're looking at. And then again, Germany is already becoming more and more of a nation of cyclists, but especially in cities, many of them are saying that they feel threatened by cars. There's too much traffic, the cycle lanes are too narrow. So investing into that infrastructure as well could be a way of going greener in terms of traffic within Germany. We will see how much the government will actually implement of all these ideas that are floating around. And also we will obviously see on Friday how the people, and particularly the protesters at Fridays for Future, will react to these announcements.
Well, I'm hopeful that our Minister for Railway Development is watching and taking some notes as well, because we've been trying to improve on our rail system here in Ghana. So yeah, a bit of a note-taking there for us. Hopefully we'll get through it all. Then Friday, we'll look forward to what the government announces so we can have a discussion on it as well next Wednesday. Malte, thank you so much for coming through with that one. Malte Rover Kalman is correspondent with our partners DW. He joins us all the way from Berlin here on The Pulse with me, Gifty, and up here.